I'm Tara.
I'm Ryan.
We love Disney movies.
So we decided to watch them all, from Snow White
to Frozen 2 and beyond. Each episode will watch a different Walt Disney Animated Studios film and tell you all about it.
Did we like it? Does it hold up? Who's our favorite hero?
Or villain.
We'll give you history and fun facts about each movie.
And sometimes we'll invite our friends to watch along with us.
So put on your tiara
or your evil crown
and join us on our adventure.
This is Tara and Ryan's Princess Diaries. Hello, listeners. We are back with another great episode. We are talking about Disney's Tarzan from 1999, and we have another very special guest who's also a part of our Three Timers Club.
Yes, the second member of the Three Timers Club, which will probably, I think, for Bree soon become the Four Timers Club. Like,
I know Bree will
Bree's
age out of the age out of the Three Timers Club soon. But it is Bree. So hi, Bree.
Hello.
Welcome back. Now, Bree, I know you specifically, I think, asked to do this movie. I don't know if you asked or if we said, hey, here's what we got, and you were like, ooh, Tarzan. I have not seen this one.
I'm shocked you haven't seen this one.
Again, I am a senior in high school at this point.
No, I know, but like I feel like Tarzan is a story that you would have been interested to see it at some point. Am I wrong in that?
I'm not the biggest Tarzan fan. I like it, but I like the kind of early, like, kind of adventure novel stuff. But let's hear why Bree wanted to do this one.
So I actually don't remember why I picked when I picked Tarzan, because I feel like I don't remember ever not knowing I was doing this episode. Just like I kind of almost don't remember having not seen this movie. I've seen this movie more times than any other movie ever by far.
Movie or Disney movie?
Any movie.
Any film you've seen Tarzan. Wow.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, we had a little portable DVD player, and we would go out of town a lot to see like grandparents and stuff, and every single time I had the Tarzan disc in that portable DVD player. I started counting at one point and I lost count at 16 times, and that was when I was still a kid.
Wow.
That's great. I love it. So, diehard fan.
Well, I'm excited to see it for the first time.
Yeah, I remember loving it. I definitely saw it in the theater. And I remember really enjoying the music from it. I loved Trash in the Camp. I loved Turk and Tantor, like my two favorite characters from this film. So yeah, I'm really excited to see it again because it's been a long time since I've seen it.
The biggest memories I've of Tarzan are one of the early levels in Kingdom Hearts.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Because it was also very weird because I think they do this in the movie too, but like when he speaks to animals, he's very eloquent, but when he speaks to people, he's like, me Tarzan, you Jane, does that stuff.
Yeah.
And he did that in the game, and I hadn't seen the movie. I'm like, why is he like sometimes very easy? Like sometimes he can talk and sometimes he sounds very strange.
Well, and to just interject a fact in here at the start, apparently, and now I can't remember who does the voice of him. I have it written down. But whoever does the voice of him, supposedly they wanted him to do a British accent, I believe a British accent when he talks with Jane, because she kind of teaches him English, and then an American accent when he talks with the animals, and that was supposed to portray, he's using a different language, even though like we hear it in English, but apparently that actor could not do a convincing British accent.
I was going to say, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. Yeah, it didn't happen.
Tony Goldwyn was the actor who was the bad guy in Ghost.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that. The guy who, spoiler alert for Ghost.
So I've never seen it, by the way.
Oh, then don't share it.
Well, he's a bad guy in Ghost.
I've probably heard everything about it.
Yeah, but yeah, he apparently couldn't do a convincing British accent. And then another fact I have, I know we're kind of going out of order here, but while we're talking about him, he also could not really do the Tarzan yell very convincingly. And so, Brian Blessed, who plays Clayton, he, after noticing that Tony couldn't really do it, he went up to the producers and he said, I can do it. And the producers at first were like, no, we're not going to do that. And then he did the yell for them and they were like, okay, yes. So Clayton does the yell.
So
anytime in the film it's Clayton, it's not
That's
Tony.
not well. I think so. First off, I think it's pronounced Brian Blessed.
Oh, sorry.
I don't exactly know but he's like such a prolific actor, and he is basically a beard and a mouth. Like he's got this big beard. He was in. I know him from Flash Gordon. He was like the king of the Hawkmen.
Oh, okay.
We should probably watch Flash Gordon sometime. It's a nutty movie. Do you know him from anything else? I feel like he's been in a million things. He's big Shakespeare. He was Hamlet's dad in Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet. The ghost of Hamlet's dad.
Yeah.
My favorite Hamlet ever.
Like, you ever lose, he's like, oh, this big beard. He's like, I'm Brian Blessed. He's this boisterous personality. And to hear that he's Clayton, so I don't know a lot about Clayton. Again, my big takeaway from Tarzan is the Kingdom Hearts game, and he doesn't talk much in it. It's a weird thing where it feels like they couldn't get Brian Blessed in for very long, or they didn't give him a lot of lines. He's confusing because like Hades has a lot of lines, Oogie Boogie has a lot of lines, Ursula has, like, they got the real actors, and then I didn't really, so I don't know much about Clayton, and they don't talk about him a lot in any of the behind the sines things I saw. I don't know if any of you have a reason for that.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's he's a bad villain. I don't know.
I don't think that's it, but
great.
yeah, that is an interesting observation.
Okay.
I guess we should kind of jump back to the beginning now. So it was 1999. It got an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Top 3 movies that year: Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, The Sixth Sense, and Toy Story 2.
All of them were great.
Yes. Do you like The Phantom Menace?
That's the one Star Wars movie I really watched.
Oh yeah.
Like when
I know you just watched watched Episode 4 for the first time.
I haven't seen any of the originals since I was a very small child.
Right.
But when that one came out on DVD, the first one, I just rewatched it all the time because it was all I knew of Star Wars, so I thought it was really cool.
I have a what may be seen as a hot take. I think it's the best of the prequels. I don't watch the prequels very often, and I have reasons for it, but that's my thought. Did I say that number 8 was The World Is Not Enough?
You did not. No, James Bond.
I want to make sure we got that in there. A very underrated James Bond theme by the band Garbage. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk a little bit about...
Well, a little bit more about the music. It did win for original song. It won for You'll Be in My Heart. Phil Collins did the music to the movie. And it is the last Disney film in Disney's Renaissance period. And it's the last Disney film, both short, animated short, as well as animated feature, to win an Oscar award until 2012. The short Paperman won an Academy Award for Best Short.
Good.
Love Paperman.
Yeah, so good. So,
I think Paperman is kind of what kicks off, like, the group that does, we'll learn about it when we get there, but like Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen and like kind of that the newer, the Disney CGI resurgence. Not Pixar, but the Disney animated studios. Can we talk a little bit about Phil Collins and the music?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
I've got some facts about it.
Yeah, go right ahead. I didn't do a ton on that.
So I thought this was an interesting story. Apparently, there's a meme out there where it's like, hey, Phil, it's just a song about a guy in the jungle. Don't work too hard. And then it's like a dude playing a piano and it's on fire. And it's like, Phil Collins didn't have to work so hard on this music, but he did for you and me. But so apparently he honestly did. They went to him and he said, okay, I'd like to start working on this. Like when at the very early stage, and they go, well, we haven't really gotten the story nailed down. We'll do that, and then we'll come back to you with like these beats and what we need in the stories. A month later, he had submitted 3 songs that are in the film. I don't remember which ones they were, but they're like 3 songs that made it. Yeah. He was like, yeah, just kidding. I went ahead and wrote these songs before all this stuff.
I feel like we read about that with Howard Ashman when he was talking about Little Mermaid, and he's like in front of the animators, and he's like, so let's just say you had a song, and at that point he had already written a chunk of the music.
World.
Yeah, he'd already written. So it's like a similar thing. I love that Phil Collins was so enthusiastic.
He apparently, this is the first time Phil Collins had recorded anything in other languages, because he did it in all the languages.
Oh, you stole my fact.
Oh, interesting.
I stole your fact?
I was going to make sure that we talked about this because of my
let's
background.
go back and you can interrupt me. So that's all I have about Phil Collins.
No,
Bree, did you have something?
You've probably researched the fact if you brought it up. I just kind of knew it from what I do. One of my favorite ways to practice a language is to listen to Disney songs in that language, because
Oh,
I'm
that's
very
a
familiar.
really
yeah.
smart tip.
Yeah, if you watch Disney, you're already familiar with those songs. They generally have simpler structure and they're clearer to understand. So I remember learning grammar terms because of these songs that I heard. But I would listen to the Tarzan soundtrack in different languages because I freaking love it. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is Phil Collins. And I switched to another language. I'm like, this is also Phil Collins. And I switched to another.
They did a thing in the how do I want to say Back to the Future? I don't know what I'm talking about. In the making of, I saw that was like they just played I don't know the songs very well, but it's the one that goes like do 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 do. Is that one by him?
Sure.
When it happens, I'll say it. But they started playing. Maybe I may be confusing it for an actual like pop Phil Collins song.
Yeah.
Because I do love me some Phil Collins.
He's great.
But he's just playing, and they'll just switch it to a language in it, and he sounds really good for someone who I don't think knows those languages.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he felt any pressure, because I know Peter Gabriel made a big deal. Peter Gabriel, who was the lead singer of Genesis before him, that Phil Collins was in the band. Sorry, that's not for you. I know you know this,
No.
Bree, but it's for our listeners out there who might not know that. I know you knew it too. I didn't want to make it sound like I was speaking down to you.
No worries.
Peter Gabriel does a lot of German albums, so I wonder if
to my
any of that
ultimate
rubbed off on him.
pleasure. Oh my gosh, I found them on Spotify and I was beside myself. I was so excited.
That's awesome.
Did I tell you about him, or did you just discover him around this? And I was like, oh yeah, I knew about them because my sister's a real big Peter Gabriel.
I don't know. I feel like I found them on my own, but I do that a lot where it's like, I told you about that. And I'm like, oh, you
maybe
did?
Maybe not. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know my sister, like that was something I gave her for a gift one time, was a German album. And I was like, do you know German? She's like, no, I just love Peter Gabriel so much. But yeah, I'm wondering if he picked up any of that from that, because he does sound very good for someone I don't think speaks these languages.
That's awesome. The other fact I read, which I think is conflicting, so I always like to point these out when I find them, is that they say Phil Collins was chosen to do the music as a deliberate move from show tune music. And I don't think it conflicts, but they said that's why they also chose Elton John for Lion King. So I guess it's not necessarily a conflicting fact as much as it's just like they're making a statement that they wanted to move away from that show tune music, but I think they have moved away from it since Lion King. Well, I don't know that it's although I guess Pocahontas kind of has Mencken, and then I guess he's also in Hunchback, but Hunchback's music is very different, I think.
Now, I will pull back the curtain a little bit. We are recording this a little out of order, so I don't know who is doing the music for Mulan. We haven't done that research yet.
Yeah.
I know Phil Collins comes back for Brother Bear.
He does.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Yes, I think so. I don't know any of the music from Brother Bear. I know this one because I like Trashing the Camp, because there's a version with NSYNC.
Yes,
and I was kind of I wouldn't really a secret NSYNC fan.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Well, I also wanted to talk a little bit about the original story. And Bree, I believe you were reading the original story as well. So I did want to talk a little bit about that. I'll just give kind of like the little blurb I looked up on it. Sure. And then you can kind of talk about, your insight from it, from reading it recently. But the original story was created by Edgar Rice Burroughs. And it first appeared in the novel the character Tarzan first appeared in Tarzan of the Apes. And there was a magazine publication of that in 1912, I read. Yeah,
it was kind of one of those old adventure stories where they do like serialized versions and release them every month in a men's magazine.
And then there was a book publication in 1914. Since then, there have been 25 sequels, several authorized books by other authors, and then innumerable works in other media, both authorized and unauthorized. So it's obviously become this very big story. I also have something to talk about when it comes to race, and some of those depictions. I don't know if we want to...
It may be hard to believe that race wasn't handled well in the 1910s with a book about a white man who lives in the jungle.
Yeah, so I have just one little paragraph about it if you want me to read it here, or if you want to talk about it later. It's totally
Let's go ahead and talk about it, yeah.
So this is, again, from Wikipedia. It's not a super deep dive, but it kind of seemed to sum it up, so I wanted to share it here. But it says that the Tarzan books and movies employ extensive stereotyping, With changing social views and customs, this had led to criticism, including changes of racism since the early 70s. The early books gave a pervasively negative and stereotypical portrayal of Native Africans, including Arabs as well. And it says, in The Return of Tarzan, Arabs are surly looking, that's in quotes, and call Christians dogs, in quotes. And while Black Africans are Ebon warriors, gesticulating and jabbering, and that's also in quotes.
That sounds about par for the course.
There's more.
That's not as bad as I've experienced.
Yeah, there's more on that. I just kind of wanted to say that that's out there because it is based on this original work.
We'll have to see after we watch it, like, how we feel about any depictions. I don't know. As far as I know, there's only white people in this movie, but I don't know.
But Brie, I kind of just wanted to also get your thoughts since you read it recently, and maybe how it compares and contrasts to what Disney did and that kind of a thing, especially since you know the Disney film so well.
So this, I had wanted to read this book for a long time because I love the movie so much, but it was never at the top of my list, so I never got to it. And I started reading it for this podcast, and I chose to stop reading it for this podcast.
Oh, did you?
I got halfway into it, which is right about where he meets the Native Africans.
Okay.
And it was so uncomfortable that I decided I had enough knowledge and I just stopped. The characters are all very different. The story's quite different. His relationship with the apes is incredibly different. There's a whole lot of stuff that they changed for this movie. But it's pretty bad. He focuses a lot on the differences between races and features and...
Got it.
Yeah, going back, especially with these kind of adventure, my biggest experience with it was reading the James Bond novels, which I think weren't nearly as old as these, so they're probably, big old air quotes, better. But it becomes...
Well, in James Bond, sexism is very prevalent in that as well.
Ian Fleming makes no qualms of the fact that he hates gay women. Is ridiculous how much... It's just, I'm reading, I'm like, oh. And it's ridiculous for me to say, boy, they really were more... those Sean Connery James Bond movies were way more progressive than the books. So just think about what that means in general. But I got I read Goldfinger and I got a little bit through Casino Royale and I was like, I'm just going to like these movies. Like, I'm cool with just liking these movies. I mean, that's it. I don't want to say these were low writing or anything like that, but these are supposed to be like men's magazine stories and things that, like, they're not for a wide audience. They're made specifically for a certain audience, and they're while adventurous and fun and have some good elements to them, like, are dealing with like some of the lowest common denominator readers of that time, which would include people who, these views. Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure that we talked about it a little bit. I don't necessarily know that we're going to see that in the Disney film, but that may also be because they just took all of that out.
Yeah.
One thing sorry, go ahead, Brie.
Oh, I was going to say, have you looked into how many adaptations there have been of Tarzan since the book came out?
Did you have the actual number?
I just had like an estimate. Yeah, so Brie, if you want to go ahead, that's
I might only have an estimate, and I don't have that page open right now, but the book I have has an introduction where they're kind of explaining the background behind, like, hey, this is a warning. This book has sensitive issues. This is for information and education only. Here's some background.
That's interesting. I don't think that I've seen that in a book before.
Yeah, I appreciate that they put that in there.
This is Oxford World's Classics. I don't remember what the number was, so I'm just going to say one, and I could be wrong. Sue me. I think, but there was like a 30-year period sometime in the last century where there were, I think, upwards of 50 Tarzan movies. Like, they were making one or two a year or so.
I can't remember the name of the actor who was like the most prolific star.
I have
Star
it in
Wars,
here.
Most prolific Tarzan. I don't know why I'm thinking of other things on my head today. But yeah, do you remember, did you ever go on the Great Movie Ride where they had that animatronic that was basically just an animatronic on a vine?
Johnny Weissmuller.
Yes, Johnny Weissmuller.
Yeah.
But it was Johnny Weissmuller on a vine on the Great Movie Ride at Disney. MGM Studios. You just go, ah, and you just go to the other side. My Tarzan yell. Well, when we come back afterwards, I promise we will all give a chance to doing our own Tarzan yells.
I think that's great.
Oh, no.
And talking about those movies in particular, the Disney movie does reference things from Johnny Weissmuller's movies. The Me, Tarzan, Eugene, that comes from those movies. Tarzan wrestling with crocodiles is in both. And I also read Jean's costume at the end of the movie when she's wearing more of... She's not wearing her English getup. She's more in
her Victorian getup.
Yes, her Victorian. Excuse me, her Victorian getup. She's more in a jungle getup. I don't know that that's the right way to say that.
I mean, I think she's wearing like something made from nature.
Yeah. So that apparently connects to those movies.
I will say, guys, not a whole lot of time with this movie. Just seeing some stuff in the things. I thought I was done with Cartoon Crushes. Turns out.
You love Jane?
I was kind of into Jane. Definitely love her voice, Minnie Driver. I'm a big Minnie Driver fan.
Yeah.
She brought a comedy to
Apparently
that character.
She ad-libbed a lot too
Yeah.
when she first comes back and is describing that she saw Tarzan. I think a lot of that was ad-libbed. I think I read.
I didn't see that was ad-lib, but they definitely say she came in and brought like a humor to the character that wasn't necessarily there on the page originally, and they really jumped at it.
And to talk about, you were saying that she was your crush. I did want to just focus on, they brought in, I'm going to Tarzan. They brought in a professor. They hired a professor of anatomy to consult.
Yes.
Because they wanted about Tarzan's musculature. And so he superimposed the correct types of muscles over their drawings. So they could really highlight like what a very fit individual, like someone at the prime of his fitness who would be moving the way Tarzan was through the jungle, what muscles would be focused on.
So this was a joint venture between the LA studio and the France studio.
Oh, okay.
And part of the reason they did that is Glenn Keane wanted to go, who was the supervising animator for Tarzan, wanted to go to France because he said, I had this feeling that they would do really good with it, and they focused on Tarzan there. It was interesting. He was talking about like Jane was drawn in LA and Tarzan was done here, and they're like, and somehow and they still like fall in love and do it. They have a lot of stuff there. They have a lot of emotion, even though they're not necessarily like they would send pages over and then the Tarzan people would fill it out. Yeah. But a lot of the animators in France had studied a lot of anatomy too. So that was some of it, as he said, that was, what he felt really helped them nail the character.
I think it brings a uniqueness to his character and a believability. Is that a word?
Do we think? I know Tarzan.
He's believable. I guess is a word.
I know Tarzan is on screen in only a loincloth for most of the movie. Is Tarzan a hunk? Speaking of Cartoon Crushes,
absolutely.
I mean, I guess so. Yeah, I don't know that he was like one in my. I can get back to you after I watch it again. But yeah, I feel like he's got that quality.
Listeners, I'll let you know if Tara's like fanning herself.
I know.
And, like, opening her collar. Like,
I have some thoughts about his appearance, but we haven't seen it. I love that he's got this longer face. He's got this prominent chin, and his hair is this messy. He's not your typical like handsome Disney male protagonist. He's very unique, and I think they did a great job of showing his personality and his face, since a lot of times he's not communicating as we would.
Well, yeah, that's
a very good point.
They make a big point about how this one had less dialogue than a lot of the recent movies, and so a lot of it, I was interested to watch that because they showed a lot of like dialogue light scenes, and I was like, this is really interesting. They really focused on trying to get the emotion through the facial I don't know what the word.
Facial expressions.
Thank you. I don't know what is going on with me today.
It's okay.
But yeah, like those type of things and the interaction between the characters more.
Yeah.
But the thing that was interesting about this, one of the things they thought was really good about the medium of animation versus live action, is this was the first. So in the books, he can talk to the animals, correct?
Yeah.
So they hadn't really been able to show that on screen, like him interacting, other than just like a trick, like Cheetah, go do this. His chimpanzee, I think on the show was named Cheetah, and Cheetah would go do something.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, now these are characters that can interact, and you can learn about, like, he has a whole plot line that's about I don't fit in with the apes and my father won't accept me and blah 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 and those type of things. That was something that could never really be done with this story except in this medium.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great point. Also going back to...
Thank you.
You're welcome. Also going back to how he was animated, they based a lot of when he moves and slides down the logs and different tree limbs and stuff like that. They based it on Tony Hawk.
Yes,
So,
that's what it was.
nice.
Yeah.
I knew this fact from when the movie came out because it was drilled into my head by like Disney Channel or whatever.
Yeah,
which I know is ironic, me going, "Oh, it's too cool to watch this," but I was at home watching Disney Channel. But anyway, I remembered that, and I could not find the fact. The other day, and I was like, "There's a shot they showed a bunch of times where he's carrying Jane." And you listeners can't see this, but like the things crisscross and his legs go like really quick down the thing. I was like, this is impressive.
Yeah, I remember loving being really impressed by all of that in the theater. It was really cool to see that.
Well, I've got some information about some other stuff with that, about the CGI used in those scenes.
Okay.
It was a program called Deep Canvas, and basically what they would do is they would make these like colorless. It's interesting because in game design we call that like gray boxing or white boxing, and it's like you make very simple shapes to create the idea you want in video games in like a level, so you can go in and get the flow and everything like that. And in this it was to get the scene, and then they would have the artists would go in. They're starting to actually use like Wacom tablets or whatever, just to actually paint directly onto it instead of doing like going on and doing ink and paint over it. They were doing it in the computer in this one. But that's why they made a big deal. Like they were really pushing this deep canvas, because that means you can go in and like it really felt like you were moving through things more than like the multi-plane camera or anything like that. And then they'd animate on top of that. So be watching, it was interesting to watch this because I always thought like Disney used to do hand-drawn animation and then they switched over to CGI. What a bummer. It's like, no, it was a slow process. Like, we've been watching this come all the way from Rescuers Down Under, and it's definitely leading to where they are now.
I agree. Yeah. And I think when you watch the catalog fully like that, you pick up on those nuances a little bit more. So I have a fact about Rosie O'Donnell, voiced as Turk. So they say the reason Turk is female in this movie. So I don't know if Turk is based on, is Turk supposed to be the character you were talking about?
Well, is there a monkey best friend? Excuse me, to all our ape listeners, I apologize. Is there an ape?
I believe that's Turk.
I don't know if is there an ape in the book that's like his
in
best
the book,
friend?
I don't know.
Yeah, in the first half of the book I read, he doesn't have any like animal companion.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's based on other media, but they say female in this movie. So it's obviously that he had a chimpanzee friend who was male at some point in one of the adaptations or potentially the original. But the reason they went with a female voice is because they saw and heard a lot of male actors who auditioned and it just never clicked. They weren't really finding it. So I don't know how Rosie O'Donnell came in, if they were looking for a male voice actor. I'm not sure how that happened, but she came in to audition for it and they said it just immediately clicked. And Rosie O'Donnell, when referring to the gender change, this is what she said: "You don't have to be a guy to be a best friend." I was like, yes, Rosie, love you.
Well, I like that because you don't see a lot of like women best friends at this point in time of the male character. There's like, we're starting to get the gay male best friend of the like main female character in movies, but we don't see this dynamic a whole lot.
Yeah, so I really thought that was kind of fun. I
just have a personal fact I want to give, and that's I had no idea Glenn Close was in this movie.
Yes, but remind me.
She's Kala. She's
that's
his mom.
right. Yeah.
Because, and this is after
Best Disney mom.
Yeah, Kala is great.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. At this point, there's not a lot of Disney moms that make it.
Yeah.
But I just, the last Disney thing I think of with Glenn Close is Cruella de Vil a few years earlier, where she is wild.
Yeah,
so then they're playing
so
this scenes with Kala, and Kala is very calm and very nice, and I'm like, whoa, who is this? It's like Glenn Close. I was like, get out of here. And Glenn Close had a lot to say, where she thought she liked that it was a mother who had lost a child and was trying to adopt or find someone to kind of fill that gap. I think she took it at a very mature place that I don't know that, well, I'm not an actor, but I just didn't expect that from that character, right?
Yeah. Well, let's focus. I've got a little bit on Clayton and then some things to look out for, but I've also got look out for things with Clayton, so I thought we'd talk about it. Yeah, look out.
I've got some Clayton facts too.
Oh, yay, great. So I have that Disney villain book that I mention a lot, and I'm going to actually put a link to it on the Facebook page at some point because one of our listeners reached out to me and was curious about it. So if anyone else is curious about it,
about the book,
about
not
the
specifically
book,
about Clayton.
Yes, sorry about the book. Just I'll put it out there if you're curious and you want to get a copy of it. But they mention that one of the co-directors of the film, Chris Buck, said everyone brings something to the character, and with Clayton, Brian Blessed was that guy. So we just drew Brian. So they said they very much like kind of just based Clayton off of Brian. And I had mentioned that the Tarzan yell is Brian. And he said that yodel, he called it, was from when he was a boy and his friends would mimic the Johnny Weissmuller's Tarzan call. They'd just be out in the woods playing and they would mimic this call. And so that's how that kind of came to be for him.
I was born in the early 80s and I feel like I still did that before, like jumping off a high dive or something. Like it's just something like ingrained in the culture for such a long time.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention about Clayton, and then Brie, I'm excited to hear what you have to say too about him. His outfit was apparently designed to appear like Saber's, the yellow fur, to designate him as the new villain. Because
I'm sorry, what's Saber?
Saber's the leopard, I believe. Is he a leopard?
Oh, yeah. The leopard earlier in this movie?
Yes, in this movie.
It's like Sabor?
Yeah. Am I saying it right?
Sabor
maybe? Is it not Saber?
I have
We'll
no
find out.
idea.
I didn't know he had a name.
Yeah,
again,
it's
in Kingdom Hearts, it's just the leopard.
Yeah, it's Sabor, and several facts I read reference that name, so I might not be saying it right.
That's fine. We'll figure it out when we watch this.
But
we're lovers, not experts.
Yes, but Clayton's outfit was designed to appear like the leopard's yellow fur to designate him as the new villain. And when Clayton first appears, he's covered in shadows that supposedly give him the look of spots.
That's an interesting choice considering Jane's dress is yellow, as far as I remember.
Yes, yeah, it is yellow.
Do you know that's why they have their spots, or like giraffes and stuff? Is it's supposed to be that wherever they are, that's the way the shadows through light look?
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that interesting? I never thought about it. I was like, why spots? Just thought it was like a design choice.
And
by
that's
the Lord
by
or
nature,
evolution
yes,
or whatever.
But also when the leopard attacks Tarzan, before he attacks him and the gorillas, if you look closely in the jungle, you can apparently see the leopard camouflaged in the jungle. So that's another lookout thing. But Brie, what do you have about Clayton?
So I was very surprised when I was reading the book, and it introduces Tarzan's father as John Clayton, Lord Greystoke.
Oh, interesting.
Clayton is Tarzan's dad, and he's not the villain in the book because his dad dies. Spoiler. Whoops. It's like the first 5 seconds. You're fine.
I will tell you, he has a great mustache in the pictures I saw of him.
So Clayton, Lord Greystoke, is sent to Africa because there's a settlement there that the British government, I guess, has heard reports of the people in charge of that settlement are treating the black British citizens poorly. And so he's going there to see if this is true and kind of report back. And then there's like this whole bit with pirates that's really exciting, and they get basically hijacked, and the pirates dump them on some shore somewhere, and they have to fend for themselves. But yeah, it's his dad.
This sounds like its own adventure story.
Yeah.
It was, the pirate part was real fun.
I was reading, too, that most of the movie takes place in the era of, like, 1911 because of the viewing of Halley's Comet. But then they reference the original shipwreck happened in 1888. So they must be referencing the shipwreck you're talking about. And I guess in the story, I don't know if they talk about a shipwreck in the Disney version.
Oh, I don't remember what time.
So they might be referencing the original story there, because that was a fact that I was a little confused on. So that makes a little bit more sense with that one. Just a couple other things to look out for. Apparently, there's a set of a teapot and teacups in the camp, and they supposedly bear a resemblance to Mrs. Potts.
I think I knew this.
And her
Yeah.
teacup children is how they were described. And when Tantor sees them, Tantor is scared that they'll come to life. So that is, I love Tantor. I'm pretty sure I had a Tantor stuffed animal talking about Tarzan merch.
I think there was another little trivia fact like that. I remember playing the trivia on the like menu in the DVD. And
Oh, yeah.
like at one point, Jane's dad is held upside down and shaken, and so all his like pockets are overturned. And they're like, what famous Disney character or something falls out of his pocket? And it's like the dog from Mulan or something.
You are 100% right, Brie. I have that fact. So good call going down memory lane. Yeah, the gorillas pick up Professor Porter, her father. And yeah, it's apparently a beanbag toy of the dog. And I think the dog's name is Little Brother from Mulan. So yeah, that's awesome that they shared that.
Again,
in,
we're recording
commentary.
out of order, so if you've already heard us, Little Brother has become our favorite character at this point.
I've got one more thing to look out for, and then I wanted to highlight the musical, which I didn't know existed. So I just wanted to talk about that. Yeah. So I'll get there, because I didn't know about that either. But another thing to look out for is the lighting in Tarzan's duel against the leopard. They say is very symbolic. So whenever Tarzan is safe from the leopard, he's always in the shade. When he's vulnerable, he's outside of the shadows. And they say that this reflects how gorillas were safe in their shady and secluded tree nests. So that's kind of how they would, seek safety out in the jungle. So I just found that kind of interesting. So the musical, which I didn't know existed, this was something that was highlighted very quickly in the Villain book. And I was like, hold on, I need to look this up. Tarzan on Broadway opened May 10th in 2006. It was nominated for 1 Tony. So it was nominated for Best Lighting Design. Didn't win, but was nominated. The songs were written by Phil Collins. The book was David Henry Hwang, I think is how you say it. It ran for 35 previews and a total of 486 performances. So it didn't have a super long run, but it's been staged in several other countries and also by regional theater as well.
How did they do him like sliding, doing all the Tony Hawk stuff?
So I didn't go into a deep dive.
It should have been all on like roller skates, like Xanadu or something.
I will say,
He's got
listeners,
Heelys the whole time.
Yeah, a call to the listeners. If you've seen Tarzan on Broadway or know anything about it, we would love to hear from you. You can send us an email. You can post on the Facebook page or call
707-YO-TRPD1. That's 707-YO-TRPD1.
And then the other fact I have, and I wanted to check this with you if you remember this. I read that it's the first Disney movie to open at number 1 at the box office and win an Academy Award since Pocahontas. Is that accurate? From our past research?
I don't know. We haven't done a whole lot since Pocahontas. Like Hercules.
Yeah, it wasn't. None of those opened at number 1.
Yeah.
So it probably is accurate. So I just found that kind of interesting.
Well, that's all I got. If you guys are ready to go, I think it might be time. Do you guys have anything else?
I don't. Bree, do you have anything else?
I mean, I've got a whole bunch of notes from the book, but that I think they're not completely relevant right now, so I think we're good.
Do you want to jump in while we're watching, like when we're discussing it later, and be like, oh, in the book they did this? And
there's a lot of things I want to say later.
Great,
okay,
yeah.
Great.
Oh, I'm so excited for that.
Awesome. Well, so let's stop the lane. We'll get the VHS out of the clamshell and stick it in the VCR.
Hold on.
What?
When do we switch to get the DVD?
We
out
don't.
Of the
It's
clamshell?
always going to be the VHS.
All right.
Even when it's Raya and the Last Dragon, it's always It
will always be the
old
clamshell
media forever.
All right. Well, do you want to say that again?
No, I like where we are. You just say your line.
All right. We'll see you on the other side, listeners.
Was that good?
Yeah.
You're just going, yeah. All right, Bree, go.
Hold on, I gotta stop laughing. Oh, jeez.
Are your roommates home?
Yeah.
Okay, that's gonna be fun to explain later. We're back, guys. We thought we'd give our best Tarzan yells. As the first time I'm seeing this, that was really good.
Yeah,
I liked
it was
a lot.
great. I laughed, I cried, all the things I normally do. It was really wonderful.
Bree, as this being your 900th time to see it, how did you? Did it hold up as well as it ever did?
Yeah, I always enjoy it. I always cry at the end too. I didn't really at this time, but I think it's because we were kind of chatting too, and I wasn't like, maybe I'm getting tired of it.
Yeah, we talk a little bit during these, but I was cheering at spots.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was like, yeah. Like, I got really excited at certain things. I got sad at certain parts. I didn't cry because I'm a big, strong boy. But
I did.
I don't know. I think it was more of the shock of what happened, less of like,
yeah.
I don't know. I also wasn't super invested in that character. Like, we'll get to it in a second.
Yeah.
But guys, big recommend. Let's get going. I know. Bree's got a schedule to keep, so we're going to try and do this as best we can, guys.
Let's go. My notes quick here.
Yes.
So what I found interesting, I'm always keeping an eye on the opening credits sequence. The title comes out almost immediately. So we see the title of the film very quickly, which that's been a little bit different than what we've seen recently.
Yeah, we've had some cold opens recently.
The other thing is, Ryan said Tarzan's mom can get it too when we were seeing.
Did I say that?
Yes, you said
what?
that. Ryan was into Tarzan's mom, so it
I
opens
missed
with...
that.
I was thinking you meant Kala, and I was like, when did I say that?
No,
Yeah.
Tarzan's human mom.
Yes,
Ryan
I
had a
forgot
crush on
about that part.
Tarzan's human mom because we see the shipwreck. So the
Apparently, I'm just into Victorian ladies.
yeah,
I don't know.
The fact I was reading about referring to Halley's Comet and the shipwreck with the years that I mentioned at the beginning they're referring to the film. They're referring to this shipwreck and estimating when it would have been in time, and then Halley's Comet. So it opens with this shipwreck, and it's kind of this montage. It opens with Phil Collins' Two Worlds, One Family. I don't know that that's the title, but that's like one of the main choruses.
So I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think this is my favorite song. Mostly because they do such a cool job in it of like, it's one key when it's them, and it's a different key when it's the monkeys. No, when it's the apes.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting to me. It tells a story. Like, there's no dialogue during
No
most of that.
dialogue at all for the most part. And we're seeing the struggles of both families. We're seeing the shipwreck and how they come onto shore and what they have to do and how they start building their home. When it cuts to the apes and it cuts to the gorillas, we see what's going on with that family, and we see that Kala loses her. Is it a cub? How do they refer to gorillas?
Ooh,
I don't know that they're
I'll
cubs.
look that up here in a sec. But
yeah,
Sabor,
Sabor, and it is Sabor, not Saber. Sabor, the leopard. We see him off camera, like in the trees, take their child, and so she's childless now, and we kind of see that happen. And this whole montage, it really is a beautiful opening, and it very much gets you to the heart of the story very quickly.
Baby gorillas are actually called infants.
Oh, that makes sense.
I also know goat is a kid, a goose is a gosling, and a grasshopper is a nymph.
Oh, interesting.
So just up there. Check out zooborns.com.
Then we hear a baby cry. So the music fades out and then comes back in at the end, but it fades out here. Kala follows this baby cry because she's just recently lost her infant, and she follows it and finds this tree house, and it's Tarzan's house, and she sees like bloody footprints. So we know something pretty tragic has happened, and Tarzan is kind of hidden under all of these trunks and fabrics and cloth and things like that. And as she and her are exploring, Tarzan's very cute as a baby, and little Tarzan too, when he's like a child, when he's a little bit more grown up, but not fully an adult, is super cute. But they're like exploring one another and getting to know what's different, what's similar, and it's a really sweet scene. But then you realize that Sabor is hiding and waiting.
Sabor is menacing.
Yeah, Sabor has a Shere Khan vibe to him a little bit.
But so fluid, and the design is so fluid and wonderful.
Yeah,
there's a lot
very
of
sleek.
musculature there too as well. I know we talked about Tarzan's musculature.
Yeah, and so he starts chasing him, and this whole scene is really scary. We see a lot of death early on in this film, so I do just want to mention that
It's
for
pretty
viewers.
intense.
I will say I don't remember, because I was trying to remember if a shipwreck was in the beginning of this movie at the first top of our recording. Like, I don't remember any of this. I just remember like Tarzan as a kid, and maybe that's because
You
I blocked it out, or I think too as a kid sometimes we just process that stuff differently, so it might not affect kids as much as it affects adults, and vice versa. But yeah, it is a lot of darkness there, and that chase scene becomes pretty scary between Kala and Sabor, and then the music comes back in when she saves Tarzan and kind of welcomes him home into her home.
I just in my head imagine Phil Collins be like, "Movie's about to be scary. I'm getting out of here, folks." You
Yeah.
know, like what's is it a Disney movie where they're like, "We told you we'd be back at the end at like the what?" No, it's
It's Muppets Christmas Carol.
Yes,
they leave,
yes, that's exactly what it
They
is. where
leave
they
during
leave
the Ghost of Christmas
Future.
Future.
And they're like,
Yeah.
"We're back. We told
We'll
you."
be
That's
back,
what it
folks.
feels like.
Yeah.
Phil Collins is like, "It's about to get scary, folks. I'll be right back."
Yeah. But then it cuts to the apes in the jungle, and Kerchak is very much from the beginning, he's not our kind, don't put our family in danger, he's not my son. And we talked about this a little bit with Hercules, like finding your place. And I feel like this has a very similar theme. At like we find later on in the story, like Tarzan realizing he doesn't belong, and a lot of that comes from Kerchak. Kerchak really doesn't let him forget, like, you're not one of us, you don't look like us, you don't act like us, you shouldn't like be a part of us. So I think there's a lot of underlying themes there that a lot of people can relate to on many different aspects. Feeling like you don't fit in.
I think they handled it better in this than they did in Hercules.
Yeah, I think it's a stronger focus.
Yeah, they
one.
explored it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, they explored it in a lot of different ways, and they show it in a lot of different ways, I feel like, here. And then it cuts to Kala singing You'll Be in My Heart, which is the song it won an Academy Award for. And you see the bond with her in Tarzan. You know, they both really needed each other, I feel like, in that moment in time.
Yeah.
And obviously Tarzan had no one to care for him, but I think Kala, like you mentioned, was trying to fill this void, and they bond. And then it cuts to her waking up, she can't find him, and now he's grown up a little bit, so he's a boy.
Well, he sneaks
here.
up behind her and does a elephant trumpet
Yeah, he's
call.
imitating all the different animals.
Because that becomes a thing that he's very good at mimicking sounds in general.
Yeah.
But mostly animal sounds.
Yeah, and so Turk tries to help him out. At this point, we kind of see that maybe they're friends, but Turk is like ashamed that he's friends with Tarzan. It's like a secret friendship because the other apes don't necessarily approve of Tarzan. So Turk and him kind of play. But he's like, you can only come hang out with us if you can keep up with us. And so that's like the whole bit. So then Tarzan does keep up with them, and Turk comes up with this crazy plan to be like, well, to be one of us, you need to go get an elephant hair. And so you see all these elephants like just, grazing kind of in the water and cooling themselves down. And that's when we meet Tantor, who's my absolute favorite.
The most paranoid,
I love it.
neurotic.
Like, yes, I loved Tantor as a child. As an adult, he finds his bravery, and he's great as an adult as well. But I love him as a little kid. I love his voice. I love how scared he is of the water. I love that he's like on the lookout for everything.
But what
And
about bacteria?
Yeah, the bacteria in the water. And
I love how smart these elephants are, because there's a thing where he's like, it's a piranha when he sees Tarzan.
elephants never forget, right? So I think, are they
But
playing
who taught
off
them
of
in the first place?
I guess that's true, yeah.
Because they're like, oh no, son, piranhas are only native to South America. I love that bit. Like,
yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I think they capture personalities of animals well. They, at least with the elephants and the apes. And the monkeys too. Those other monkeys that meet Jane later on. I think they do capture different personalities there. But Tantor sees Tarzan swimming around, thinks he's a piranha, and starts freaking out. And essentially, it causes this stampede. All the elephants are terrified. They then think it is a piranha, and they run through where the apes are.
And then they disappear for most of the movie, except for Tantor, where it seems like his mother has abandoned him to just live with the apes.
Yeah, it seems like he's just part of the ape pack at that point. And then
excuse me, I believe it's the ape troop. I
Thank
will look
you.
up the noun.
The family group.
The family group, yes. And while Ryan's looking that up, Bree, this is where you mentioned that Tantor is feared by all in the book.
Yeah.
A troop of gorillas.
Tantor, and One of the things they make interesting about Tarzan in the book, when they're like, Tarzan is separate from these other creatures in the jungle who are inferior to him. And here's one of the reasons. Tantor, the mighty elephant that all, even Kerchak, fear. And he's friends with Tarzan. And he'll ride his back and stuff.
Yeah, so I just found that interesting that they played Tantor the complete opposite of that.
Right.
I love it so much. So this again, after this stampede happens, Kerchak says he will never be one of us. Look at him. And that's when I wrote Finding Where You Belong. That's where I kind of was like, we just had a similar theme on that. And then I was like, oh, it was Hercules. But I agree that I think they delve into this subject matter a lot more. And I'm not adopt it, but I think for someone who does have that feeling of not knowing where they belong, I feel like this might be a movie you can really connect with on that level. You know, I don't want to speak for individuals out there who have gone through that, but I think in general, just even when you're in school and you're trying to find like your group, like your people, I just feel like they did a really good job kind of exploring that a little bit. And we see this whole scene between Tarzan and Kala where he starts, he splashes away his reflection because he doesn't like the way he looks. And then he's putting mud on himself so he can try to look more like the gorillas. And then she comes over to him and she says, forget about what you see. What do you feel? She really focuses on, his heartbeat, her heartbeat. It's the same. They feel the same. And Kerchak just isn't seeing, he isn't seeing what they're feeling, essentially. And I really like that scene a lot. And then there's there's a lot of montages in this film, which I think work really well. And the next montage is Tarzan trying to be a good ape and trying to just like live in the jungle, but he's very awkward and clumsy. Mm-hmm. So he's imitating other animals. We're watching him grow up. We're watching him like get into situations that wind up falling in front of Kerchak, and Kerchak kind of doing the eye roll of like, here's another example of why you don't fit in.
Which is interesting because he's like learning to use tools and stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, you're really falling behind, man.
Yeah,
Kerchak, you should be listening. This is the future.
Yeah.
Son of Man is probably my favorite musical part of the movie just because of the scene and the montage of it. It's so fun.
Yeah.
It's a really great montage, and we see him grow up. We see him become a man, and it's more in depth than Lion King. Like, right, Kuna Matata, we kind of see Simba grow up, but again, this one,
as he's walking across the log. It's
exactly.
Like, I'm older.
Yeah,
I'm
this
older.
one it goes into it a much more in depth, and this is where we really see his movement. This is where we first, as he becomes a man, we really see the movement we talked about with his feet crisscrossing and how he glides over the logs and how he swings in the jungle. And it's all very, very cool. So then Sabor winds up attacking, and we did see him kind of camouflaged. We did find that. You can see it. If
it was like painted into the background.
Yeah, it was really cool the way they did it. And Sabor,
that's a good point. I didn't think about that. That had to be a completely different artist putting that into the background.
That's true, yeah.
Because you can tell, like, there was a shot where it was these flowers blooming, and you could tell the stem of the flowers was background, but the, like, petals and stuff was... when I was a kid, I could always tell, like, a little bit... This is me bragging. But, like, I didn't think about that. That was, like, hey... Like, that's a coordination between the departments that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, Sabor comes back, attacks Kerchak, and Kerchak's down. And Tarzan steps up and he steps in to fight, and he winds up defeating Sabor and gets approval from all the apes.
Killing Sabor.
Yeah, and then kind of presents Sabor's body to Kerchak as kind of like a, here you go, like, I'm trying. And
lunch. Let's eat him. That's what the part they cut out.
That was such a great fight scene, too. It wasn't a lot of, like, punching and face-to-face. There was so much movement and interaction with the background and the environment.
Yeah, very much so. And also the way all the apes circled. And I believe that's something
to
they
our ape
do.
And monkey listeners, we keep mixing.
I know. I believe that's something that they do in the wild, right? Is that something that they do? Like if
what, circling and
hooting?
Circling
I think
and,
so. And
chanting.
I mean,
again,
chanting,
you know what that felt like when he gets thrown into the thing with Ka, and we talked a lot about how this felt very similar to
the live action Jungle Book.
Yeah, like that's what they all do is they all go around.
Oh yeah, that's right. When he's fighting Ka.
I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah. So,
Based on 2 Disney movies I've seen.
yes. So then, after that, they hear the gunshot. That's when we first hear a gunshot, and we know something else is in the jungle now. And that's when we were questioning, is Tantor part of the ape pack? That's when we were like, he's really just with them all the time. But so Tarzan goes to follow the sound. He goes exploring. He hears the gunshot again as the apes are moving on.
Can I ask you a real quick question?
Yeah.
Do you remember in Kingdom Hearts, does it do that where there's a gunshot? He goes, Clayton.
I don't know.
I feel like he does.
I don't remember. It's been a while.
Yeah, I didn't understand it because I hadn't seen the movie.
Yeah. But he goes exploring, and he's in the shadows this whole time, but he's observing Clayton, and then the professor, and then Jane. So this is where we meet those 3 characters, and from Tarzan's point of view. And we find out that they're there to research gorillas, and we also find out that Clayton is very trigger happy. He shoots at a leaf falling from the trees, which is Tarzan up in the trees. They just don't know it. And Clayton's very aware of Tarzan's presence, even though he can't find him and see him. He knows something's there, and he knows it's not a gorilla. He knows it's something else. But yeah, Clayton very gun happy, and a lot of guns in this film.
Want to take this moment to talk about the mustaches in this film.
Oh my gosh.
We've got Tarzan's dad, who's got a beautiful mutton stache.
Oh my gosh, that was gorgeous.
It was very
we've got Jane's dad, who has the big bushy one. I also like, and then Clayton's got a pencil thin one. All very well suited to each character, but beautiful piece of facial hair that everyone should consider doing. I know beards are very big right now, but let's bring back just
mustache
the
representation
just
here.
Saying.
But and then we said how Jane has a good cackle.
Yeah.
So Jane kind of gets separated from them, and
she's great. I fell in love immediately.
Yeah, she's wonderful. She gets distracted by this monkey who's eating a piece of fruit, and she starts drawing the monkey, and they start kind of pantomiming with one another, and the monkey sees the picture she drew, and he feels like it's a very good representation of him, and he takes her book and starts ripping out pages and throwing them around. She's chasing the monkey, and then all of a sudden
she makes the monkey cry.
She makes the monkey cry because she takes the picture away, and then she looks around, and we don't know if they were baboons or mandrills.
I don't know if they're the same family.
They said baboon, but
did it? Yeah. But all of a sudden, it's the monkey's troop.
Yeah.
Is all around her and starts chasing Jane, and this is where Tarzan saves her. And I love as he picks her up, she's like, "I'm flying," and then she freaks out at Tarzan. This voice actress was amazing in this, but her reactions during this scene, her screaming, her nervousness, her excitement, she plays all of these emotions exaggerated, but I think very well.
Real quick, a collection of baboons can be called either a flange, a troop, or a congress.
Okay, I'm going to just probably say troop because that's what apes are, but I appreciate the knowledge.
I like collective nouns. I think
flange is fun.
Great. Yeah, flange is fun. But yeah, she's scared of him. She's shouting, and Ryan, you said here they wanted it to feel like a thrill ride.
Yes, they said that specifically. They wanted the movement to feel like a thrill ride. They did that specifically when she's running away from the baboons. I thought that was cool too, because a lot of the times we see it's him him doing stuff for the jungle. But this had a really cool way of creating that interesting parallaxing feel that you used to get with the multi-layer camera, multi something. I forgot what it was. Multi-plane. Thank you. And now they're able to do it on an infinite basis of 3D art moving through there.
Well, and I said I wonder if there is a Tarzan coaster anywhere in any of the Disney parks. I don't know that Tarzan has a big presence in the Disney parks.
You keep going, I'll look it up. But before we do that, real quick, I want to say a group of elephants is called a memory.
Ooh.
Isn't that cool?
Well, they never forget. So
there you go,
interesting.
exactly.
But yeah, I just feel like it would be easy to translate this scene, any of Tarzan's scenes in the jungle, to a coaster kind of a ride, kind of a thrill ride. But after that, this is when she starts witnessing Tarzan talking to the monkey, and he realizes the monkey just wants the picture. So he takes the picture from Jane and gives it to her, and the monkey winds up taking one of her boots and her umbrella.
Well, no, she loses her boot when she's flying. It doesn't later.
Later
he shows
we find
up with
out
the
the
boot.
monkey has it.
And he's floating down on the umbrella.
Yes, on the umbrella with one of his parents.
Yeah, who's like yelling. Tarzan's treehouse is the representation at the parks. It used to be the Swiss Family Robinson treehouse when I was younger, so they changed it to
Tarzan's
Tarzan.
treehouse. Got it. Okay.
It's at Disneyland and Hong Kong Disneyland.
Oh, thank you for that.
No problem.
So I love Jane's face when she's like, "It can't get any worse,"
And
and then
immediately
it
starts
rains,
raining.
and that face is great.
Opposite it can.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite like trope jokes in movies. It's always
Yes.
like, could be worse, could be raining, thundercloud.
Thunderclouds, yeah. So we really liked this next scene as Tarzan is exploring her's the wrong word. He's inquisitive about her.
Well, I did want to talk about this because it's interesting. There's like, I don't want to say like sexuality to it, but there's an intimacy between them all throughout this that I found very like
Well, I think
tantalizing or interesting because
Jane mentions it. He doesn't have any personal space boundaries. So
But-
I almost feel like that.
but even the way they animate it when he's
Yeah.
taking off the glove, like it's very intimate without being scandalous or anything.
Mhm.
It becomes a thing in the movie, I think, partly because you're dealing with Victorian England, which is very uptight and proper and stuffy.
Yeah.
And Tarzan's just like up in her face. And it's interesting because he's like that, but then yet still the kiss at the end, spoiler alert, is very intimate on top of that. I just found that very interesting, the way they managed to portray that, and her being like not repelled by it, but definitely like, I'm not used to this, and push away.
Yeah. Well, and it's a similar inquisitiveness that Kala has with him when he's a baby. Not in the same way, obviously, but
Yes.
Kala and him kind of go through that. But when they put their hands up to one another, we were talking about just the way that they animated him. You know, his physiology, I think Bree said this, we watch his physiology change a little bit. And you see that the more he's with the humans, the more he changes to
Mhm.
be more like them, like standing upright and the
Yeah,
way
his
he's moving
posture
his
and
hands
stuff.
and things like that. And then he tries to hear her heartbeat and she's like flustered and blushing. He looks under her dress at one point and she kicks him. Again, like he has no idea.
Inspecting her feet and it's
Yeah.
tickling, and then he goes to look under her dress and she's like, well, hang on, and
Yeah.
just kicks him.
And then he starts mimicking her speech. So she realized, at first she thinks he knows English, and then she catches on very quickly that he's imitating her and how proficient he is at it. And then we cut to the monkeys and Tantor, or the apes, excuse me, and Tantor. They come across the camp first.
Mhm.
So this is where Trash in the Camp is. They're looking for Tarzan. I love the sound effects. It's such a great scene in the film. And you wanted to say something about...
Okay, good. I'm glad, because I couldn't remember if I said it during the beginning
You
of the
didn't,
actual film.
no.
But it is, Phil Collins said this was the hardest one to do, but he was really excited about it because he wanted to do something very percussive. He says it's like 3 repeated lines over and over again, but there's a lot of percussion in there because he himself is a drummer.
Yeah, I think it was really expertly done. I loved all the sound effects and the way they layered on top of one another. It was always, as a child, it was one of my favorite moments in the movie. And we do see Mrs. Potts. We see a couple times.
And Chip.
Mrs. Potts is easy to see.
Yeah, it's easy to spot. But then this is when they all meet Jane. So Tarzan brings Jane back to the camp, and it's just Jane with all the animals, and she's pretty amazed. And she sees how Turk interacts with Tarzan and how they all like know each other. And then Kerchak comes along because everybody starts hearing the sounds. That's how Clayton and her father come back to the camp. That's how Kerchak and the rest of the apes are coming to the camp to see what all the sound is. And he calls them all away. And that's when Jane realizes, oh, Tarzan's one of them. Like Tarzan belongs with them. And then as Clayton and her dad come back, she's describing her adventure. And it's great. Like that's another really great scene. Even if you don't watch the whole film, which I highly recommend you do, just go find that specific scene because it's really great. Her kind of reenacting everything that happens. And then it cuts to Kerchak, and Tarzan kind of speaks up. Like, Kerchak keeps telling him, like, you need to protect our family. Like, why are you doing this? And then Tarzan then says, why are you threatened by anyone different than you?
I do think Kerchak had a point. Like, I think that's what made him interesting, is he didn't accept Tarzan, and that was bad, but it came from a place of, like, I need to protect my family.
Well, I think there's something to be said in the jungle that when something is different than you, it poses a threat to you. I don't want to say that like a blanketed statement, but...
Right. Well, because we as a society have well evolved beyond the needs of living in the jungle.
Yes.
But as a, like, primitive
Yeah.
animal society knew can be dangerous. It can be useful. It can be anything. So you have to go forward with caution.
And I think you have to go forward with caution is probably the better way to say that. But
and that's the type of life we should return to.
Okay.
We should
All right.
Even in the book, it was they make it very clear a few times, like the tribe of gorillas is
troop of gorillas.
Family. Troop of gorillas. And even other troops, anything else in the jungle is an enemy.
Yeah, and I feel like we get that vibe from the Jungle Book a lot too. You know, Mowgli's super curious.
Can I will point out that he's like Tarzan is a problem, but they do let an elephant hang out with them like at all times, no problem.
I know, but we also have to remember how skittish and nervous Tantor was. I don't think Tantor.
Kerchak, even Kerchak takes pity on Tantor. He's like, "Oh, that poor boy."
He's like, "Come be one of us." But Tarzan also here gets really upset at Kala because he says, "Why didn't you tell me there are creatures that look like me?" You know, it's a very confusing and frustrating moment for Tarzan because he always felt like he didn't belong, but he didn't know that there is a group of creatures that he does belong to, that there's a group of people, you know, that look like him.
Well, have you ever seen The Jerk?
No.
Okay, well, I don't know that that's a joke I should be making on this podcast. If you know, you know.
Okay.
Here we go.
So, Jane and her father, they start moving around like Tarzan. She's like drawing him in chalk and, you know, kind of showing her dad how he was walking, how he was moving. And so they're doing all of that while Clayton is shaving. And it's really cool that we can see them in the reflection of Clayton's mirror. I just thought that was a really neat way that they did that.
Do you remember when we did Peter Pan and they made Captain Hook like left-handed because it was easier to draw or something like that? And now they're like, oh, we're just going to draw something backwards in a reflection. I'm like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, it kind of flexes their muscles a little bit. I really liked it. And then this is where Clayton says that, you know, he'll be able to get what he needs, the information out of Tarzan, because he was able to teach a parrot to sing God Save the Queen.
Clayton's got some good stories.
Yeah.
I ended up liking Clayton way more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah, and the first interaction with Tarzan and Clayton is humorous because Clayton is just like he's just yelling at him. And I feel like...
And Tarzan doesn't understand.
Exactly. And I feel like that is a thing that sometimes happens, unfortunately, in society when someone speaks another language. And I see this a lot with English speaking individuals where they just start talking slower and shouting at someone.
Yeah. Well, she did that first. Well, I guess
but
she
thought caught on pretty quickly and then was like, oh, he needs to be taught the language, right? Whereas Clayton, it's pretty blatant. He's not taking the time to understand
Clayton is a heel and has no intentions of not being a heel.
Yeah. So then, I think it's Strangers Like Me. Again, I don't know all the official name of the song titles. I more so just
I got you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Brie. Thank you so much. But it's another montage. So now we see... Oh, is that rain? It's rain.
Must be.
Yeah. So now we see them teaching Tarzan. We see Jane and her father specifically, and this is where we felt it really connected to the live-action Jungle Book. It was very similar.
I just thought this podcast could be worse. It could be raining. Oh, sorry.
So then we see throughout this montage that Tarzan is spending all his time with the humans. He goes home to sleep with the gorillas, but then immediately he's waking up before the gorillas and going. Mm-hmm. And so Kala is also observing this Turk. The rest of them are kind of observing this as well.
How long? Because, like, you got two sides to it. Either it took them a long time that it would take to learn a whole language, or this is going to be a dark and spooky episode.
I know.
With the thunder. But it either took him a long time to learn the language, which means he was doing a good job of hiding it from the gorillas, or he wasn't doing it for very long, in which case, how did you learn all that so quickly?
I think it's longer than it feels like. I feel because they didn't know when the boat was coming back, but I feel like that was several weeks worth, that montage. Right. I don't know what you guys think.
What do you think, Brie?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, without going into...
talk about learning language?
Yeah,
what do you mean without going into?
Go into the linguistic part. Yeah, I mean, that's your jam. Go for it.
Well, okay, so I knew some basic things, and I did a little bit more research about case studies of children who had no linguistic input until adulthood, which I think would qualify as Tarzan. Well, there's a question here. was Tarzan, did he have no linguistic input until he met these people? Or is the ape language complex enough to satisfy those requirements? And I don't.
Oh, interesting.
I don't think that's. I mean, I know that's not the case, because there are also studies of how primates have been taught to acquire human language, and they don't.
Oh, you mean like Coco and...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, they can learn words and they can put words together to form meaning, but grammar, there's nothing in the form of grammar. Anyway.
Yeah, that's the one thing we have above the apes. I can do the usted, the nosotros. Yeah. Good.
So I would say that Tarzan didn't have human linguistic input until he met these guys. And in that case, I would say he does not learn human language fluently, period. He could make meaningful utterances by putting words together, some even abstract words, like nouns that aren't concrete. But the part of his brain that kind of held the blueprint to learning language and grammar has probably atrophied when he was a kid. So he probably doesn't ever get grammar, really.
So like teaching a parrot to learn words, like they'll learn words, but it doesn't mean anything.
Oh, he'll get meanings. He probably could get a huge vocabulary. But he wouldn't have these words like, he wouldn't have like articles or conjunctions or stuff like.
Yeah. Oh, well, and I feel like the emotional piece, like, he's very emotive with the gorillas, so I think, if he knew a word, like, he could have an emotion attached to Jane because he feels a certain way about Jane, right? Like, that's present.
So for how he gets, and when he does first start talking with them after that montage, it is those simpler sentences, so they stick with that for a while, but after, by the end of the movie, he's talking a little better. But I don't think... to get to that point, I would say it would be years.
Yeah.
Are you taking into account the fact that they had a slide projector?
I was just gonna say it's also a movie and fantasy, so
I love the slide projector scenes and them all sleeping and he's like just
looking through everything.
Voracious to learn.
I also like that we see Jane becoming more comfortable in the jungle. We see her kind of swinging from vines and she's sketching out that one bird, and then he takes her. I love when he takes her up to see all the birds. He's like, oh, no, you think that's great. Like, let me show you where they live. Yeah. And I just love that moment in the montage, too. But again, Clayton asks about, take us to the gorillas. And then Clayton makes Jane ask him. And he goes, I can't take you to the gorillas. Kerchak. And then so the montage picks back up after that again.
Yeah.
And then from one of the slides in the slide projector, he sees a man with flowers giving it to a woman. And so he goes to pick flowers for Jane. And when he comes to the camp, the boat is here. So the boat's here to pick them up. All of these pirate-type individuals are the boat hands, are deck hands, I guess.
Yeah, they're like 1 yard away from just being pirates.
They're all packing up the camp kind of haphazardly, just throwing things around and packing things up. And Jane wants Tarzan to go with them. Her dad wants Tarzan to go with them. They don't think they're going to be able to come back. He asks her to stay. So it's this very, it makes this very important moment in the film where it's like, what are their choices going to be around this? And Clayton, this is where we see how manipulative Clayton can be. Up to this point, he's been kind of intense, but in the background, right? And all of a sudden he's overhearing this conversation and he's very manipulative and he talks about Jane's sadness, not seeing the gorillas, and that, maybe if you showed her the gorillas, then maybe she would stay with you. Like that could probably happen. And so Tarzan then agrees to take them there. So at this time, he asks Tantor and Turk, can they distract Kerchak so he can bring them to the gorillas? And so Turk is in Jane's dress. And Tantor has essentially a sock puppet, but it's his snout, his trunk of the professor. And so basically they distract Kerchak and he's like chasing them around. So he brings them, and it's Clayton, the professor, and Jane to meet Kala. And Kala here, her eyes, she's so emotive. I feel like the way they drew her and her eyes.
She's very afraid.
She's very afraid. She's very terrified. And she kind of backs up into the jungle and she disappears. And then they look up and they see that they're surrounded by the apes. They are very much in the middle of where they all are. Tarzan is speaking to the apes, and then they try to speak gorilla by mimicking Tarzan a little bit here. And then the father, Professor, faints because he sees all of the gorillas. And Jane is like interacting with the babies. It's a really sweet moment with everyone. And as that's all happening, Clayton is marking on a map where they are in relation to the water that comes in from
like the
sea,
river and the
river, so he can come back. And then Tarzan and Kerchak get into a pretty big fight here because when Kerchak comes back, he realizes what Tarzan has done. And he says, you've betrayed us all. And Tarzan runs away. He's looking at the ship in the distance. He's very confused. And then this is where Kala's like, I should have shown you this a long time ago. And so she takes him to the treehouse where she found him. And he finds the picture of his family.
Oh, I forgot. I completely forgot he dresses up here.
Yeah. So Kala just basically says to him, I just want you to be happy. Like,
that'd be
whatever,
a good cosplay.
That would be,
is
actually.
like Tarzan in his
three-piece suit.
Yeah.
She just wants him to be happy. And it's really a heartbreaking moment because you know that she's already come to terms with he's going to leave. But I want him to be happy. Like, I don't want to keep him back from what he wants. And so he puts on his father's clothes and then he says, you'll always be my mother. I started getting teary here too. And then Ryan noticed that he figured out cufflinks because he's got a cufflink.
Well, I went back because I figured he must have. I wonder if I didn't look, but I wonder if Clayton had cufflinks because
maybe. Well, Clayton, I feel like has more of a safari kind of a.
I guess he does. I think
outfit.
He rolls his sleeves.
He rolls his sleeves
a little
up.
bit, I think.
Yeah. But Tarzan makes the
He's
decision
got those
to
hairy
leave.
forearms.
Yes. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Tarzan makes the decision to leave, and Turk and Tantor miss saying goodbye. They run, and they don't get there in time, and they're on this, a little rowboat that's taking them to the ship. And as they get on board, we realize that there's been a change of plans, and all of the pirate-type individuals have now captured everyone, and they're working for Clayton. And this is when Tarzan is being held by two guys, and he asks Clayton for help. And this is where Clayton turns. Yeah, Tarzan doesn't really realize how evil we as the viewer know.
Right. And I like that handling of the situation.
Yeah, and Tarzan realized this is where I think Tarzan gets Kerchak's point, right?
Yeah.
Like that betrayal.
Well, he starts blaming himself.
Yeah, starts blaming himself. I did this. I led them right to him. And then we cut back to Tantor and Turk, and they hear Tarzan yell out, and Tantor's like, Tarzan's in trouble, and Turk's like really angry because he left them and abandoned them and didn't say goodbye and all of these things. And Tantor finds his bravery here and is very much just like, no, I'm tired of this. You're coming with me. And he runs and jumps off a cliff and like swan dives into the water. And then he's like, I never felt so free. And I just love that we get that moment.
I've never felt so alive.
Oh, that's it. Yes.
With the guy from Jurassic Park.
Yes. I just love it so much. And I love that we get to see Tantor's character like experience this adventure and like this thrill. So they go to help set free Tarzan and Jane and the professor. And I do like the bit where the boat moves, so we know that Tantor is now on the boat.
Yeah.
Like the whole ship moves. So Kala's sad. Kerchak starts seeing flares. All the apes start freaking out, and this is when everybody comes into where they're at and starts capturing them. So this is another very intense scene. Apes are being captured in cages, in nets. And Tarzan's headed their way. He's also getting all the other animals. We watch him interacting, like the hippos start coming with him, the rhinos, the elephants, everybody.
All the pachyderms.
Yeah, they're all kind of with Tarzan going.
I'm like
to
doing
save
big
the apes.
flexes on my
You really
terminology on this one.
So Clayton goes.
Love me some pachyderms.
Clayton goes to shoot, and then this is where Tarzan comes in with all the animals, and then Kerchak says, you came back, and Tarzan says, I came home. That's another, emotional line.
This is also where he shoots at Kerchak, and I went,
Kerchak.
Ah! Like, I, verbally was like, what?
Yeah, he shoots at Kerchak, then we don't see Kerchak for a little bit, and then he goes after Tarzan, and he's like, I was looking for a challenge, and once I get you, then everything else will be easy. Jane goes to save Kala, who's in a cage, And this is where the monkey
always help your mother-in-law. It'll help in the long term.
Yes,
That's the trick.
I can speak from experience.
Yeah. Always saddle up to the mother-in-law.
I do love my mother-in-law, but it's always nice. You catch more.
She's blinking much more than normal.
You catch more flies. Is it flies with honey? Bees with honey? What is that?
Catch more
phrase?
flies with honey than vinegar.
Yeah, I mean, she said the words, I love my mother-in-law, but.
Yes.
I guess I didn't mean it like that.
Her eyes are blinking like a captive.
Take this out. But we get to see the monkey and the baboons. I guess that monkey is a baboon. He's just the baby version of the baboons. But we see them. They come in and they save Jane.
I don't know. They've got an elephant in the gorilla troop. Maybe there's a monkey hanging out with the baboon flange.
But they come to save Jane because as Jane saves Callus, she kind of gets captured. And they still have the boot and the umbrella. I love that the monkey still has her belongings.
Well, he's wearing it like a helmet.
Yes. So then Clayton, as he's going after Tarzan, this is where we get a very intense interaction and villain death. Mm-hmm. But they are interacting with one another and they're fighting, and Tarzan kind of wraps him up in all of these vines. And he breaks his gun, so now Clayton just has a knife, and he starts cutting away.
That's a machete.
Yeah, I guess it is a machete, yes. He starts cutting away at everything, not realizing that the more he cuts, like, he's going to fall. He's not holding on to anything. Mm-hmm. And then one gets wrapped around his neck, and Tarzan is trying to give him a heads up that that's happening. And he winds up hanging himself, and we see his shadow in the lightning. It's very quick, but it's very dark, and he falls from pretty high to where he hangs himself, even though we don't see it.
Do you think the discussion was, and then he falls from a great height, and then they go, well, let's do something different, and it was just a bad choice?
I want to bring Bree in here for this, because she mentioned something specific about Tarzan with how he goes after different animals and things, and how he kills enemies in the wild. But I'm wondering if they pulled from that or if they just came on that on their own. But Bree, you said when you were reading in the book where you got to.
Yeah, it's not good. But Tarzan finds out early on that he can make rope, and it becomes one of his favorite ways to fight and kill things.
Yeah.
So I have a fact to take us out of that dark.
That's great. I've just got one or two more things because we're towards the end of the film.
A group of hippos is called a bloat.
A bloat?
Yes.
That's funny.
It also has an extra thing. It says a group of giraffes is called a tower, but we didn't see any towers in this.
No, he does.
They mentioned the giraffe.
Yeah, Turk says he's
dropped
acting
me like a
baby
baby giraffe.
Yes,
yeah,
I'll let Bree do the quotes because I don't remember them nearly as well. But then Tarzan goes to Kerchak, and it is very clear that Kerchak is not going to survive. And he says, "You've always been one of us. Take care of them, my son." And I bawled. Like that. Yeah. So that happens. All the gorillas follow Tarzan. He kind of becomes the new alpha. And then the next thing we see is Jane and Tarzan saying goodbye on the shore. And she gets in the rowboat and they say goodbye. And the dad says, "You should stay. Like, you love him.
Yes.
Like, why are you coming back? There's no reason. You need to go."
And we get one of my favorite parts in the movie, which is where she jumps off the boat. And then her skirt, her big, giant Victorian skirt, like, whoop, like, they do such a good job of doing that for a second.
And make it feel very realistic.
Realistic, but not, like, because it's a goofy thing to do, but they don't make it cartoonish. Like, it's just, it's very Jane. It's very, I loved it.
It was really great. And then they kiss and they embrace, and all the monkeys are watching. Like, the apes. I keep doing it. I'm so sorry. For our ape enthusiasts out there, all the apes are
Planet of the Monkeys.
All the apes are watching. It's this really sweet moment again where they touch hands first. You know, that intimacy comes back, and then the father's on the rowboat and he's like, "What am I doing?"
Yeah.
And he tells the captain, he's like, "Tell them you never found us. People go missing all the time in the jungle." And
the captain looks like he could care. He couldn't care less. He's like, sure.
Literally, you guys sent me here to pick you up. Now you don't want to leave.
All this is just
I
a
just
long
have to get to
trip.
London. Like,
and they leave all their stuff too on the boat.
Yeah,
I have to figure out how to run a steamer ship with like three-fourths of my my crew has been has mutinied.
Yeah. So the ending scene is just everyone being one. Jane in the jungle with Tarzan swinging. We get to see her dad swinging
in
from
a loincloth
vine.
for like a second.
It's
That
really
was
great.
hilarious.
I just love the way it ends, and it ends with the title Tarzan comes in at the very end, and that's the end of the film.
Real quick before we dive into the questions, guys, a group of rhinoceroses is called a crash.
There was a rhinoceros in here, so
there was,
and it did crash through.
So that's why I wanted to do that. Now it's a rumba of rattlesnakes. That can't be real.
I feel like it's just all like what they sound effects that they would make, or like
I guess it's a shiver of sharks. It's there's anyway. I could do this all day, but we won't. So
well, they've got the alliteration going with some of those.
That's true.
There you go. The episode questions we ask every episode. How was the princess? And the princess in this case would be Tarzan.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
I cannot tell you how much I love Tarzan. Like, I think he's, usually I like the goofier, funnier characters, but I think he was just serious enough for this. I think this was a more serious story, which is funny because it's like, a man lives with monkeys. Sorry, apes.
You did it too.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I thought his... Like, I loved the mimicry he was doing. I thought was funny.
Mm-hmm.
I loved there was like a bigger plot point that I think they played the emotional parts well. I think he moved well. I think he was. I loved him. He's one of my favorites now. I loved this movie.
He was very emotive, and I love what Bree said in the beginning when you were describing his features. How his features looked very different from a lot of protagonists we've seen up to this point. I really focused on that with this viewing, and I really appreciate it. How different he looks from a lot of the other famous Disney characters.
Yeah.
And I really think they did a very good job, and as always, put a lot of thought into how he was going to move and what he was going to look like.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like we know what Bree thinks here.
I love Tarzan so much. He's very unique. I love how well they integrate his movements and mannerisms and physiology with his environment. His hands are a little curved like the gorillas, and his legs you don't see straighten out and really until he tries to stand like a human. And he's as dexterous with his feet as his hands when he's moving around. Like he could use one or the other, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think they did really good attention to detail with his design, and he looks very different from all the other princes, and even in like the hairstyle and the face.
Yeah, a lot of good hair in this, like the ape's hair, like Turk, when there's movement of Turk's hair, movement of Jane's hair, Tarzan's hair.
When they're wet, like when Tantor jumps in with Turk and he's like the Turk is like covering him like a toupee.
Yeah.
How is the prince? In this case that would be Jane. I could go on, but I don't want to sound like a creep, so I'll let you guys go.
I really liked Jane. I thought she was delightful. She was just quirky enough for me. She was intelligent. You could tell that, she was worldly in a sense, but she also had this curiosity to her and this kindness and this gentleness to her that I really liked a lot.
Bree?
I liked her too. When I was a kid, I was always real, like, angry about female characters that I thought were just like not cool.
Yeah.
So I saw her. I love her. She doesn't ever feel like she's unable to do something because she's a girl in a dress or whatever. Like she's always so excited to learn and explore and do all the things that catch her fancy.
Yeah.
I think she does seem out of place in the environment, but that's the point. I don't think it's because she's a woman or whatever. I'm interested. My big thing is I want to know how she handles, living in the jungle now, which we can all find out by checking out the corresponding the television series, The Legend of Tarzan.
Interesting.
Which eventually 3 unaired episodes, were linked together for the first sequel to this movie, Tarzan and Jane.
Maybe one day we'll do all the Disney sequels.
I think you are setting us up for failure and a bad time with this. Because remember how we started talking about the Hunchback sequel?
And the Pocahontas one?
Yes,
where
and we're
she
like,
goes to
please,
England?
let's not do these.
Yeah.
They also did Tarzan 2, which is a prequel, so it's all when he's a kid.
That's kind of interesting.
How were the sidekicks and henchmen? I want to talk first about Mr. Porter or Professor Porter, Archimedes something. Porter.
Archimedes Q Porter.
Yes, I was gonna say Q. I didn't think that was right. I think I was making it up.
I loved him. He gave me vibes of Maurice a little bit, Belle's father, and I think the relationship between him and Jane, it's not the same as Belle and Maurice, but the feeling, the connection they have.
There's a
is
lot
similar.
of love there, and not a lot of dysfunction, and I like that.
Yeah,
he was my favorite.
He was great.
I know you guys.
He was
like
also
Tantor.
kooky and quirky. Oh God, I'm obsessed with Tantor.
Who was your favorite, Brie?
Favorite sidekick? Oh
Sidekick
man,
I guess it really wasn't a henchman.
or just friend or buddy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I can split this and say Turk. I mean, I love them all, but I love Turk is so very much like, oh, forget him. I'm done with it. You know, like she's very much like, I'm not putting up with Tarzan, but also I love him and I'll go save him if I have to.
Yeah. And a lot of funny
fun.
lines from Turk, too. A lot of good delivery by Rosie O'Donnell in that.
Favorite musical number? I think we kind of did this as we went along. I liked the first one the Two Hearts.
Two Worlds.
Family.
Two worlds, yeah. How about you, Brie?
I mean, I love all of them. There's even an instrumental bit that I listen to all the time called A Wondrous Place that I love so much. I really like the Son of Man montage. I think
you mentioned that.
It's not objectively the best song in it, I think. Not that it's bad, but I just love that montage of him, like, going from, I don't really belong and I'm very different, to all the things that he can do because he's different. He's making he's riding this bird with Turk, with this rope he made, and he's built these, like, spears and stuff, and he's just having a grand time just learning what he can do and trying to contribute with Tantor and blowing the termite mouth.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I do like that it shows that not only can he do stuff, but he's helpful to the troop.
Yeah, he's being creative in his own way, like you said, Brie. Like, you know, he's doing things that the troop can't do and helping them.
So he's making himself kind of fit in.
Yeah. I like, I don't think it's the best song, but I love Trash in the Camp. And I think I like it for its percussiveness. And as a kid, it was the one that I really gravitated to.
In-sync version or this one from the...
The one from the movie, but the in-sync version is very good. I'm not going to discount it. Okay. I like the in-sync version too.
Does it hold up? Now we talked, I think there's some instances that we should talk about. I think we were worried about ethnic representation, and other than, you know, the thing we've talked about is still happening a lot at this time of this is an all-white cast. There's no people of color in the movie at all, represented poorly or otherwise. There's a lot of guns in this movie.
Yeah, I think that's the one takeaway. You know, I mean, Clayton is a hunter, but guns are very prominent. Not only the sound of the gun, but actually seeing it in action.
I was gonna say, with the gun, it's used a lot and it's an important plot point, but I think they do a really good job of showing how dangerous it is too.
Yes.
Like, this isn't just a cool tool that these guys have.
You
this
can't teach a lesson
scary
about firearms if you don't talk about firearms.
Yes, and I do think that when I was mentioning in the plot where he's very gun happy, I think we see how dangerous that can be, because he almost hits, I think, Jane at one point. You know,
Jane pushes the gun away a couple of times in this while he's about to shoot it.
So I do think that's a good point to bring up, Bree. Thank you for mentioning that.
But just something to let, you know, parents know. There's some very intense scenes in this. This is definitely a PG, I think, at this point, if it's not, you know, if it wasn't rated that initially. Yeah, and just we've mentioned the dark moments in the plot, but the things to look out for, Well, here we go, guys. We are rating, we are going to be rating two villains this time. Now, Bree, you've heard it, you know how it works. We're good to go. Right?
Yeah, the only thing I need is the order of the rankings, which we'll go to.
Have we rated two villains before?
Oh yeah.
Why
we
can't I think of any?
Pinocchio.
Oh, I guess that's true. Okay, never mind. Sorry, I just couldn't.
There's
think
been
of
movies
any
with
off
multiple.
The top of my head.
They haven't done it in a while.
Yeah, that must be why.
But I think definitely Sabor is a legit villain in this.
Yeah, and we'll go into why. I was just going to go into why, and I'm like, well, we're about to do the questions.
So let's start with Sabor. Frightening. I'd rate him...
He gets a 5 from me. He kills Kala's baby, or infant, and kills
Nice.
yes, and kills Tarzan's parents. Like, it's very clear that like those bloody footprints are Sabor's footprints in the treehouse. So he gets a 5 from me.
I don't know that I would go as high as a 5 because even as a kid, I don't remember ever really being afraid of this character. I think a 4 for sure, because there are a lot of shots where you don't know that he's there and he is. Like, seeing him painted in the background, I never saw that until now, even as a kid.
I think... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You're good. They just do a really good job of making it this kind of like, you never know when this thing's gonna come out.
I would say the same thing as you, Brie. I don't remember him as, like, when I was looking at my notes, that's why I didn't, like, know his name, because I don't remember him at all from being a kid. But as an adult, I found him much more threatening, and it could be because of what he does.
I'm going to give him a 4 because I'm a big, strong boy and afraid of nothing. So, funny, do we even need to discuss funny?
No.
I don't think he's meant to be funny.
No.
Okay, so 1's across the board for funny. Fierce. Now, this is an interesting one because, like, I think he's definitely fierce in another definition, but I don't necessarily, like, the drag queen. There's a confidence, like an animalistic confidence to him.
There's a sleekness to him in the
yeah.
way he
There's
moves.
Like, when he appears, it's always like, oh, shoot, he's here. It's never like, I'm here.
Yeah, there's no like, fanfare. I'd give him a 2 just because I think, like, a leopard has some sort of animalistic energy. Yeah. But I think that's being pretty generous.
I'm gonna give him a 2 as well.
Okay. What do you think, Brie?
You don't have to I feel like I would. Well, I feel like I would have to really justify a 1. So a 2, I think, would be good for me too.
I don't think he lacks energy. That's a good way of looking at it. I don't think he deserves a 1. Or 4. Yeah. Effective. I'm gonna give him a 5 because he ate almost everyone he went for.
And he hurt Kerchak because Tarzan winds up saving him. He attacked everybody. Yeah, he gets a 5.
Yeah, I think he is an effective 5.
Yeah, I mean, he is purely a creature of the jungle that is. The effect is, this is what the troop fears. This is something that Tarzan kind of has to overcome with a way that the troop hasn't overcome in the past. Mm-hmm. It was just always this thing.
Also, I'm not sure leopards last 18 years, so good for him.
Good point.
I mean, he did get killed by Tarzan, but
yeah.
That's just how things go.
He's a predator, so I think he meets.
I'd go with a 5.
Okay. Design.
Oh, so good.
Yeah,
Do you like it a lot?
I really liked his design. It's very sleek, and I thought the colors, even though he is kind of vibrant, when they have him fit in, when he's camouflaged in the jungle, I really like that piece of him. I do think he's got this Shere Khan vibe to him that I really enjoy.
It's weird that you say that, because, like, the thing I like, when I think Shere Khan vibe, I like the part where he's talking to Ka and he's, like, kind of confident. That feels like he's got more fierce.
Yeah, I guess my Shere Khan vibe is the sleekness and the, like, I think the predatorness of Shere Khan is more what I think. But I agree with you. Yeah, the confidence piece, and we don't hear him talk, so we don't know anything about him from that. But I think I'm going to give him a 4.
Oh, okay. What do you think, Brie?
Well,
too late. It's in.
Okay.
What do you want to give him?
I was going to give him between a 3 and a 4, but I think I'm rating him a little higher, and I don't know why.
I'm giving him a 3.
I'm going to give him a 3.
I was going to say, I don't want to rank him too high because we're comparing him to other villains where it's like his role is so completely different. But he's so separate from every other person and animal in this movie in that we don't communicate with him at all. Tarzan even communicates with the baboons. We don't communicate with him. All the other animals have such great facial expressions. You can always tell what they're feeling. And this guy is always just different. There's always a little bit of a disconnect. You're not empathizing with this creature. It's very much something that you just have to run away from. The way that they did the movement and the weight of, like, you could tell where the muscles were, where the bones were, and where skin was just hanging based on how they did the movement of different parts of his limbs. I think because of how he was drawn to, and not so much that this leopard is so much more interesting to look at than other leopards, but I think the way he was animated was so good. I'm going to give him a 4 or a 5.
Ooh,
I don't know.
well, which one do you want to give him?
Oh, I'm going to go with a 4. I don't...
Bree, you've talked me back into my original gut before.
Okay.
Because, no, when you mentioned the weight, I think that's what I was trying to describe by another reason I feel like he feels like Shere Khan. The movement to him. I think you described it so much better than
what
how
are you
going to
do when he beats Shere Khan?
I think very well. Yeah, I guess he could beat him, but okay.
I wouldn't give him a 5 just because it's also plain leopard. You know.
Okay.
But the way they did that plain leopard was so good.
Mm-hmm.
Go away, Heat. He eats a baby.
Yeah, he's a 5.
And he goes to eat another baby. And
A baby.
But he is a baby eater. Like
5.
I think he's a 5 with me. I was like,
he is gonna be high. This is funny. I didn't even know we'd be rating him today.
What do you think, Bree? What's your number?
I'd give him a high one for sure too, because like every time we see him and interact with him, it's so urgent.
Yes.
For we're with the main characters, and it's very much like a oh shoot, we need to like get through this, get over this encounter with this thing, like go away, get out.
That feels like that might be more frightening or something else. This is more of like this is so subjective. This is how like
when I'm empathizing with these characters, it's
okay.
like oh no, oh shoot, no, get away, you know. I'm gonna go away. I want to say. But I also was so excited to see it because I was like, oh, that's done really well. I'll do a 4.
Okay.
I don't think it's a 5 for me.
Yes factor for me is a 1. Like, I partially because I didn't like this character in Kingdom Hearts. That's a big part of it. Like, the leopard was a hard boss for me when I remember watching you do it. I think you killed it pretty quick, and I was like, hey. Like, I was kind of upset. What's your yes factor, Tara?
What did you give?
I gave a 1. You didn't even think we'd be rating it as a villain. I will say that.
So I'm going to say a 1.
What do you think, Bree?
Yeah, I think I would have to justify giving them any kind of yes factor.
All right. Clayton.
Yeah.
Let's start with frightening. I think he has similar Gaston type frightening where it's like he's kind of, I think he's less buffoonish than Gaston. Yeah. But then at the end he gets so animalistic. I don't know what number that gets him for me.
Well, we were saying Gaston, he had a mix of Ratigan, and who was the one I said, and now I can't remember. Another villain that I thought he was giving off vibes. Oh, the hunter in The Rescuers.
Yes,
McLeach. He had a little bit of that vibe, too. I don't know. He's not a 5 for me, I know that.
No, same, yeah.
So I know I can at least eliminate that. I think I'm going in between a 3 or a 4. I think he becomes increasingly more frightening. In the beginning... He does have a humor to him, right?
Yes.
Like he's a little bit all bark and no bite in the beginning.
Yeah, I think
because
for
we
that
don't
reason,
see him
him
harm anything.
Yeah.
In the beginning, but by
just lots and lots of flora.
Shooting at nothing. Yes. Or at plants, yes. I guess. But I don't know, Bree. What do you think? I'm in between a 3 or a 4. I haven't.
I'm pretty middle of the road too. I might say 3 because if I'm gonna think of any strong emotion I get when I see him. When he goes just ballistic at the end, it's more like anger than fear. It's like, this guy, I can't believe he's betraying. What a jerk! He's just there for the money and all.
Yeah, I think I'm 3s all around.
3s all around.
Mm-hmm.
Funny. I think he's got a couple jokes that I enjoy. I like the bit about like the bird and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think he's
super
a 2.
funny.
I don't think he's like no funny at all, but I didn't like find myself laughing. But he has like 1 or 2 moments in there.
I think a lot of the humor involved with him is how Tarzan interacts with him, which isn't really his.
Okay.
So I'll
2. I'll do the same.
Yeah.
Fierce. I think he doesn't have that drag queen energy, but he does have like this kind of like, yes, old boy. Like I thought that was like I like that kind of like adventurers club, like
his sleek little
big
pencil
game
mustache.
hunter. Yeah. So I think that might put him middle of the road for me.
I'm going to give him a 2.
You give him a 2?
I'm going to throw it out there. Sorry, Clayton.
I'm going to be crazy here, and I'm going to give him a 4.
Whoa,
all right, that's not crazy.
All right.
For
Tell us
one
why.
line, when he first meets Tarzan, and Tarzan says Clayton, he's like, have we met? But later on the boat, when Tarzan says Clayton again, and he goes, have we met? Oh my gosh, that callback, it was just so very...
That's a good connection.
I like that.
Just for that one line, it was just like, oh my gosh, this guy.
I was going to say effective. Now, originally I was going to go...
what did you give him for...
I gave him a 3.
You gave him a 3.
So we all average out. I was originally going to say with effective pretty low because I was like, well, he wants to kill a gorilla and he can't kill a gorilla. But he kills a gorilla.
Yeah, you just didn't know that.
I just forgot.
You didn't forget. You didn't know.
I didn't put it together like now.
Oh,
like,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, he was also there, I mean, why are you doing this? And he said, oh, for 300 pounds sterling a head.
He doesn't make his money. He's more... I was going to put him really low on effectiveness, and now I think he's maybe middle of the road.
I think he's very effective because, well, okay, here's why. Is because that manipulative piece comes into play. He was never there to guide them and protect them in the jungle. His main goal was always to find the gorillas to capture them. You can't tell me that, like... He just happened, like, his character is a hunter through and through, and I think he manipulated or misguided, like, he led them to believe, oh, I'm going to keep you safe in the jungle, but all he really he got what he wanted. He found where the gorillas were, and he killed the alpha gorilla. So I think he was very effective.
So what's your number?
I think I'm going to give him a 5.
A 5?
Yeah, because he did what he set out to do. He didn't make the money off of it, but hypothetically, if he lived, he could have dragged out Kerchak and gotten the money for him being stuffed.
Fair.
So I don't know. I'm giving him a 5.
Bree, what's your...
I'm a little more stingy with my 5s in this category because I feel like the 5 should be you did everything, and then it's like there should be a whole new scene where the hero has to figure out how to cope with what you've done. And this one, I think his undoing was that he just kind of got too into it with Tarzan at the end. And he's going to be a 4 for me because he doesn't bring them back and get the money. He doesn't even get them on the ship. But he does. He gets with them. He makes sure he finds the location. He gets their trust. He gets to even see the gorillas.
I think you guys have talked me into a 4.
What were you were going to do a 3?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's not super far off.
Yeah.
Design. I really liked his look. Like, he looked like you talk about. He had a big hairy forearms and like his sleeves rolled up. Like, he had one look, but I liked it. I don't think it was like the best look ever, but I think that's a 4 for me. I like that big game hunter look.
I think I'm going to give him a 3.
Okay.
But I enjoyed his look, but not quite as much as you.
Bree?
Yeah, I'm going to give him a 3 too.
Okay.
If I saw him in another movie of the same animation style and he was just a character, it would be like, that's a cool design, but...
He probably gets a bump up for the mustache for me.
Probably.
Yeah.
Go away heat. Now, I don't think he has baby killer go away heat. But he kills Kerchak. He's a slime.
When that scene on the boat is when he gets like the high go away heat for me. I think he's a 4 for me. But that scene, I think I literally was like, ugh.
When he
pretends to not know Tarzan, the scene that Bree mentioned earlier. Yeah. So he gets I think a 4 from me.
I'm gonna do the same. What do you think, Bree?
I'm gonna go with a 3. I liked how Tarzan interacts with him and what he adds to the beginning, at least. At the end, it's a little higher, probably. But
I think I'm going to give a 3 as well, because like I think he had some stuff. I'm going to bump it down to a 3. I think I will explain why I'm doing things a little high for him, because I think I'm going to give him a 3 for yes factor, and here's why. Because when I started, it was clearly a 1. I'm like, I don't really like this character. I don't really think. By the end, I was like, this guy is great. Like, he was a great heel to root against. Like, I love just being like, oh, this slime. Like he's it's wrestling. He's a good guy. I wanted to be like, get him in here so someone could beat him up. Blah. Like I wanted him to lose. Now I didn't necessarily want him to die the way he did.
Yeah.
However, I was excited by that. By the end, I was wanting him to be in more scenes. I think I might actually rate it a 2 because of how I started this. But if we were to do this movie again and do this ranking again, I think he'd get a 3. So I'm actually going to put him at a 2 because, like I said, I don't want to overextend by how excited I was for him.
I'm gonna give him a 2 because
Okay.
I know the villains I like am super pumped for, and I wasn't necessarily super pumped for him at the start. I think he played the part he needed to in the film, right? But
Yes. Bree, what do you give him?
I agree with Tara. I'm going to stick with the 2 for those same
2s
reasons.
across the board. Okay, here we go.
all right, let's see
Let's
where they
do-
fall.
The freaking leopard's going to be higher than him.
I think so, yeah. Which wasn't even really
Ryan's
expecting
making
to
a
rank
face.
him.
All right, with a score of 21, coming in at 20th place is Clayton. With a score of 21.7, coming in at 18th is Sabor, the leopard we didn't know we'd be rating this.
Oh my gosh.
I think a lot of that has...
Sabor is ranked above Frollo
Above
and
Frollo.
Hunchback? That, I think, is wild.
Frollo did not eat a baby. That's
a
all
good
I'm
point.
saying.
That is a good point.
I think that edges him over
Yeah,
Frollo.
fair enough.
Guess who he's right below who needs redemption is Lady Tremaine.
I know, we need to re-rank
Poor
Lady
Lady
Tremaine.
Tremaine.
She was our first one we ever ranked, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think we were stingy with
I
her.
think the pool is tainted at this point. I think we can't objectively do it.
I guess that's true.
So the final question, I think we know Bree's answer. I think we might know everybody's answer is, do we keep this one, put it in the clamshell edition on the shelf, or do we lock it away in the vault forever, never to be seen again?
This one gets a special place on the shelf for me.
I liked it too as my first time going through it. Bree?
I mean, if we're going by amount of times watched, it's Tarzan, Avatar, Lord of the Rings. So this was the top of my shelf. I mean, I always want to have a copy of this movie available.
No matter, like, whenever you upgrade formats, you just want
I've got it on DVD, but I can watch it on Disney+. But if I move or get rid of my movies, I want to keep that one.
Well, Bree, thank you so much for joining us yet again. We will see you again for Brave, I believe is the next one we're going to see.
Brave.
And so, as you know, we always ask our guests if they want to plug a personal project, something they've been, some piece of media they've been enjoying over the pandemic, or just a sentiment they want to put out in the world. Please feel free to plug away.
There are a lot of things I was talking about, like, he wouldn't have been able to learn human language, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to plug not letting your specialized knowledge get in the way of your enjoyment of the things that you like to see.
Yeah,
I
had a very personal moment with that. I won't go into detail, but I had that happen last night.
Yeah, sometimes if someone asks you, like Arrival, you as a linguist and someone who does conlings, how did you like Arrival? Well, I could get into this other stuff, but I had fun watching it, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love Tarzan, and I don't care if he could speak or not. It's fantasy.
Well, thank you so much, Bree. I believe our next movie is Fantasia 2000 with another returning guest who will join the Three Timers Club.
We're going to have to, like, come out and get you guys a pin or something.
A jacket.
Nice Three Timers
jacket.
Club.
Now you have to just give me more episodes.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah. You should,
We'll
like,
fight.
I'm
We got rivals now.
But yeah, thanks, guys. We'll see you next time for Fantasia 2000.
Thanks for listening to Tara and Ryan's Princess Diaries.
If you want to tell us your favorite Disney villain and why it's guest on, send us an email at trprincessdiaries@gmail.com.
Or you can send a tweet about how great Maleficent is to @TRPDiaries.
Check out our Facebook group by searching for Tara and Ryan's Princess Diaries.
Tara and Ryan's Princess Diaries are available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Overcast, and many more.
Wherever you hear us, please be our knight in shining armor and give us a 5-star review.
Thanks again, and until next time, remember to always live happily ever after.